Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the third episode of our Healing Journeys interviews. Yay! I would like to introduce a friend of mine, Michelle Lynn. We have met because we're both enrolled in the same program to become health coaches. So we are enrolled in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And we, lo and behold, found out that we both are medical medium enthusiasts. So I wanted to take advantage of hearing Michelle's story and all about it. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I kind of began my healing journey about 22 years ago when my oldest child was born, my first child. She was born after the first couple months of life, she started having seizures. And, uh, I kind of went on this path of quitting my job, which was in travel industry, and all of a sudden just being the sole caretaker of the special needs child, which was um, very hard, and started straining my adrenals, even though I really had no idea what that was back then. But I knew I was being stretched very thin, and my senses, my everything was just so heightened to watch her have seizures and to be running down to the ER and ambulances, once a week, and spending nights in the hospital and back and forth with her. Um, that's kind of how it started. Shortly, about a year or two after she was born, I really got into yoga, and that had become my escape, kind of my rescue, sort of, so to speak. But I got so into it because that's my nature that I knew I was going to start teaching it. I wanted to practice constantly. I could not stop practicing. Even home with Celia, in her little bouncy seat next to me while I was practicing and studying to become a teacher and taking classes to become a teacher. Um, so it all just kind of escalated into, caring for this child with special needs, to finding this passion of yoga. More and more stretched thin I was becoming. And, I had another child, and then I had a divorce and became a single mom of two people, decided to open up my own studio, which was, um, you know, very taxing to say the least. Amazing, but hard at the same time. Um, and that just kept going. I had a new partner. I had two more kids. We split up, single mom now of four kids, one with special needs, my own studio, and living off of, kind of, even though I was raised vegetarian and I had been vegan for quite a few years, I was really living off of handfuls of cashews, jars of nut butter, almond butter, caffeine, my daily, evening cups of wine, and, you know, green tea all throughout the day because I thought that was so healthy. So I was, straining, putting more stress on my adrenals. I went to a holistic doctor probably 5 or 6 years ago, and that was the first time I heard the term adrenal fatigue, when he told me that, how are you managing your adrenal fatigue? And I'm like, what is that? I've never even heard of it. No one's ever said that to me before. I had two appointments with him. After that, I didn't go back to him, but I eventually found, thank God, medical medium, and just happened to come across all these celery juicing posts. And I'm the first person to jump on any healthy wagon, so I immediately started juicing celery, and I immediately started reading more and more about it. I ordered the first book I had was his liver rescue, and I devoured that book. It made so much sense to me, everything he talked about. I got his first book after that, then his life changing foods book, I think. Then obviously you just get them all, and you keep
Yep.
they become like resources. You're constantly highlighting and posting post-it notes in them and stuff like that. So
Yes. So
um,
would you say that the main thing that you were addressing was your adrenal fatigue?
yes,
So that was,
yes.
what did that look like for you?
That
What
was
does that show up?
just my digestion was getting bad. I was, I had energy in the morning, but by mid-afternoon I would just completely crash. I noticed, like, for me, my nails, my hair were kind of not as thick and full as they had been. I didn't have any huge major symptoms of severe adrenal fatigue that I have read quite a bit about, but I think that being vegan and somewhat healthy in my yoga practice had kind of saved me from possibly going on to a whole chronic illness route. But I definitely needed help with my digestion, all that. I mean, I would have my morning smoothies, which would be cacao and almond butter and one banana or a half a banana because you can't have too much fruit.
Right.
Um, so
That's before medical medium. All of that stuff was before
before,
you.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
I had major fruit fear, major potato fear. It's funny because that's all I eat now. I eat fruit and I'll have potatoes, probably, almost every day. So
Yes. So how long have you been on this?
it's almost 4 years for me.
Wow.
4 years
Amazing.
of celery. And then slowly with that, you start implementing all of the other stuff. I had been vegan, so that was pretty easy, but I was eating, nutritional yeast. I was eating cacao almost every single day. Just cutting back on fats was huge for me. That I think made that and celery juice were the two biggest things for me,
Awesome.
helping my digestion. Because I would have my smoothie and it would just leave me almost immediately, in not the best way. So,
Yes. I think
uh,
that's kind of a common tale as we're detoxing. It's sort of you make friends with the bathroom.
yeah, and you know that it's not right at the same time. I just like, "What is wrong with me?" And I drive down to my yoga class. I drive from where I live downtown to teach, and it'd be just like, yeah, I just couldn't. Brain fog was huge for me. Also, that was another big thing, and I still feel I have a long way to go with that. So,
I hear you. It ebbs and flows for me. So some days it's more prevalent than others. Have you ever tried? I'm going to digress for a second, but there's a product from Vimergy called Celery Force.
I have that actually.
I feel it does kind of help with that a
Okay.
little bit.
I
It's
haven't been taking it. I took it for a little while, right when I got it, right when it came out, and it was all promoted, and I got that right away. And I didn't really, well, I don't know really what to do with it or when to do with it, so I kind of put it away. So, when do
I
you
felt
take it?
I felt the same. I take it after my morning smoothie usually. As a matter of fact, I forgot to just take it now. I wanted to take it before our interview so I could have my wits about me. But um, I found that I probably wasn't taking enough of it. I was only taking maybe 1 or 2 pills before, and now I take 3.
Oh,
And I was just reading that in the new medical medium book that he actually has like 3 pills twice a day for a couple of the conditions that I have been dealing with. So I'm going to try and start implementing even more of that.
well, that's great. I'm going to too. And I've also, I for some reason, because I was so hooked on cacao, it actually that was my last thing to give up. I switched to carob. And my morning smoothie had to be, if it wasn't that cacao, it was carob. I resisted that so much to switch to a wild blueberry smoothie. So I wasn't getting my wild blueberries in until really just this past year when I met with Dr. Sherry Green. I won a session with her, and I sat down with her on Zoom, and she's like, you get your wild blueberries in. And I'm like, no, I just have. She's like, what? She goes, have you read or seen his stuff on the wild blueberries? And that's all she needed to say because I knew in my heart I needed to do that. So I immediately went, and then I had another session with her like 2 weeks later. But maybe it was just a phone call or something. But I told her I was doing that, and I was like, I just feel smarter. I feel smarter right off the bat within 2 weeks. So
Yeah. Well, I know for me, early on, I made the mistake of I kind of crowded out those wild blueberries to the extent I would add extra other fruits in there, thinking, oh, I'm going to do all the fruits and that's going to be
yeah,
a good idea, instead of doing the maximum amount of the wild blueberries.
yeah.
And I finally got to the point where I can do the full heavy metal detox smoothie. That started in about February of this year. So that was almost like a little over 2 years into my journey that I could finally tolerate all the ingredients. But like you, immediately once I could do all of those ingredients, I was like, my healing went whew, like exponentially and that's when my voice came back and all sorts of like
Mm.
wonderful things happened for me because I finally could start moving those metals out in a more significant way. So
Yes.
I know it's this is the thing about this path. There's like so many factors and the details matter. And we
Yes.
sort of think that we're doing it. We really think we're doing the protocols the way they're supposed to be done. And then you kind of realize that maybe they weren't quite
Yeah, maybe you could
on.
tweak it just a little bit more, and maybe that would send you in a little bit straighter line in your journey,
Yep,
not so much of
exactly.
this and a little bit more straight
Exactly.
shot.
It's just it's interesting. That's why I wanted to do these interviews too, just to hear how other people have navigated it because it's a change.
Oh, and change is hard. There's so much resistance to releasing old habits and rituals.
Especially
That
around
coffee,
food.
my coffee ritual. I mean, I still, my partner just every morning, and we just would do that together and hold that mug and the heat of it and the smell of it, and you know,
I
it's
agree.
hard.
I was a huge coffee drinker as well, so I I have to say I don't miss it really anymore, but that was definitely one that was hard to give up in the
Well,
beginning.
when you hear medical medium on his lives talking about, it ages you, it dehydrates you. If you want to age, drink coffee. How can you drink it after that?
It's so true. Well, and of course, it contributes to the teeth dissolving too. So it's all of the things. And of course, I just wish I had known this 20 years ago.
I know. Speaking of teeth dissolving, that was my big thing also, because I told you I was like the first person to jump on any kind of fad that came out, and I jumped on the apple cider vinegar thing the minute I started hearing about it. And I was already doing lemon water. I had done that for many, many, many years, but now I was adding a shot, which is almost 3 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to my morning lemon water. And drinking that, and I started having some weird teeth stuff that I would go to the dentist like 3 times in a row, and I said, "I just have something's going on back there." I said, "I can kinda smell it, taste it, like something back between my molars." And he's like X-rays and checking it out, and there's nothing back there, and I'm like, "Something's not right." But I swear to God, once I read about the apple cider vinegar and started the celery juice and swishing, within I could tell that that was starting to go away and just vanish now, thank
Thank
God.
goodness. Yep, I did the apple cider vinegar too. So, I've done all the bad ones.
Yeah.
Apparently, you name a trend and I've probably done it.
Yeah, I
It's
was putting, tons of stevia in my smoothies every morning because I obviously wasn't using dates and hardly any bananas, and, get that stevia in there and lots of vanilla to make
oh
the
yeah.
cacao smoothie taste even better.
Yep,
So
with plenty of alcohol in it, I'm sure.
mhm. Yes,
Because
exactly.
like who knows to buy alcohol-free vanilla? Whoever told us
Yeah,
that?
or the tomato paste without the citric acid. It takes a little bit more time to seek out and find these ingredients, and maybe even a little bit more money, but I feel like, your health is worth it.
Oh,
And
100%. Well, for
needs
me,
to
it was
invest.
my health is everything. So I was debilitated to the point where I couldn't work anymore or do
Wow.
really much else because my energy level had tanked so far down and I had so many neurological symptoms. So I was pretty uncomfortable a lot of the time. So it was for me, the changes were not as difficult as they would have been if I felt well. If I felt normal, I don't I consider this a lot. Would I have been able to do all of the changes that I did if I didn't feel compelled to do them by a
Necessity.
yes. So I do wrestle with that because I wonder as I'm trying to enlighten other people and say this is the way. I recognize that if I didn't feel as bad as I did back then, would I have been willing to try it? I don't know. It's
It's gonna make you such an amazing, healer type person in the world. I always said that about my yogis that, come train with me to be teachers, and it's like the ones that have the hardest journey, I say to them, it's teachers that have the hardest journey that are going to become the best teachers. You're going to have so much to share. Makes you want to cry,
Oh,
so much
yeah.
to give. You have such a gift.
Well,
So
thank you, and so do you. My goodness.
thank you.
So tell me, a little bit more about is it your daughter that had the seizures?
Yes, my oldest child. So she, basically she was diagnosed as idiopathic epilepsy from from she had gotten her shots at 2 months, and we were going to go in to take her for her second set of just regular routine shots. I didn't wanna immunize her even at the beginning, but I because I had problems with it, but I was kinda bullied into it. After that, it literally she had her first grand mal seizure the day before she was supposed to go in for her second set of shots, so that stopped me right there. Obviously, we didn't immunize her anymore. Um, but it continued on. She was put on medications early on, phenobarbital as an infant for we went on a ketogenic diet when she was 13 months old. We went from breastfeeding every day. That was my way of nurturing her through her seizures, to the ketogenic diet where you go into the hospital and you have to fast for 2 days. So basically, we couldn't feed her for 2 days. I had to wean her immediately, just cold turkey kind of a thing, and it was horrible. It stopped her seizures, and we managed to get off all meds during this, like, maybe kind of year of this diet. She was the youngest person ever in our state to be put on this diet, but it did control her seizures. Strangely, we didn't know anything about it, and obviously I didn't know anything more than my doctors, or even think to ask any more than my doctors, really, at that point. But yeah, she was pulling her hair out of her head and trying to eat it. I think she was just malnourished, and that was her way of it was just horrible. But
Poor baby.
she's 22 now. When she was about 14, we moved her into a group home. She was too big for me to manage, and she was having seizures all the time in the tub, and me living alone and stuff. My It just happened that way. So, but it was, she functions like probably like a toddler, a 13-month-old right now, but she's just a bundle of love and joy. So,
Oh, well, God bless you. What a journey that is in itself.
yeah.
There's so many things I want to talk to you about with that whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, Knowing what we know now from reading the books, the medical medium books, and the fact that it's heavy metals in the brain that cause these seizures, um, what do you think about that? The fasting and the ketogenic diet did the trick, like thinking back on that.
Yeah. Um, it just changed her, you know, that going into ketosis, who knows why it happened, but I remember her. We'd have to put little cotton balls in her diaper, and we would then take when she changed her diaper, we'd take a little bit and squeeze it onto the dipstick, kind of to see how deep she was in ketosis, and compare it to the line on the thing, because it all the details mattered in that to control the seizures. If she had too much liquid, if she'd become diluted, and the dipstick would be less dark, and that's how detailed that whole thing was. We'd have to measure her food on it by the gram. And me being vegetarian, they wanted me to feed her chicken and butter and this weird stuff. And I was going with flaxseed oil and tofus and trying to make it as healthy as that I knew in my mind it
Yeah.
could be back then.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it works,
I
you
wonder if
know?
it has something to do with the adrenaline because, when we don't eat for long periods of time, our adrenal glands are forced to release adrenaline. So I wonder if maybe that fight or flight mode that you go into with that adrenaline release kicks kicks you out of the possible seizure zone for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. And reading I did back then, just knowing that, it goes way back into the Bible to stop seizures with fasting and prayer. That goes way back into literally in the Bible. So that's how people treated people with epilepsy.
Wow.
fasting and prayer.
Amazing.
Um,
So going back into your journey a little bit, wouldn't you say so what you started off with your celery juice
yes.
and then so how much celery juice did you start with?
I started with straight up 16 ounces right off the bat. Is what I was reading about it, and that's what it
Yep.
said to do, and I was going to do it, and I was going to do it
Yep.
right. I did it every day,
Yes. So
um,
so
pretty much.
then what? Then the smoothie came next?
Um, well, no, then I started probably the next thing was just eliminating some of the horrible things, like the canola oil, which is in everything,
Mhm.
which changed my diet and it changed my lifestyle. My partner and I, we'd go out to eat 3 times a week, some of our favorite foods, which was fairly healthy-ish food, I thought, but, I'd call up the place where we would have our curry and, what's in there exactly? Oh, it's canola oil number 1, of course. So we couldn't go there. We'd go to the place we went to for our favorite salads once a week, It's, oh, what's in the dressing? Well, it's canola oil, of course. So it that changed everything, even our lifestyle, which is still we struggle with, because
Well,
he
eating out
resists
is
that.
oh, so your partner is not a medical medium
No,
enthusiast.
no, and it gets, it's hard for him to have this new relationship where I am and he's not, and that's puts a big strain on things.
I understand.
So,
That's something I think that's an issue that a lot of folks deal with.
yeah, I've come up
Yes.
with that too with people doing this, and it's a hard one because change is hard in general, but then to have that resistance coming from your support people,
Yep,
it makes it a little harder.
it is definitely.
Which is why this 369 was kind of amazing that he actually wanted to do this because he has been going through some pretty bad GERD.
Oh,
So,
okay. So tell us about that whole thing because you and I had a little chat before we started recording, and so like, tell us what you guys have been up to with the 369.
this yesterday was my all juice day, which was it's actually the easiest day for me because I can drink juices all day long until evening time. In the evening I kind of like, I want a potato. Just give me a potato,
I know
and I'd be
potatoes are my
happy.
best friend.
So,
So you started the original
yeah, and it was
along
good.
with your family.
Yep. I just made everybody smoothies and we just, there's a huge expense with the with this too, because I got my a really good friend of mine to do it with us, or we would just talk on the phone and she was like, "Oh, it's so expensive. I've already spent X amount of money." But I'm like, "Come on, you just need to push through this." She lasted 5 days about also.
Uh-huh.
But
So your
yep.
family. So tell what are the ages of your kids?
So my 15-year-old daughter and my 12-year-old son and then my partner Scott.
Okay. So you started it and then they hung in there with you for
They
5
hug
days?
I actually said because my kids were kind of like, "Oh," after 4 or 5 days, they wanted, they want something different for dinner. They were okay in the mornings, and they would even eat a salad for lunch. That's the hardest part for me is because I don't like salads necessarily, raw salads. I just can't it's just not my thing. So I would much rather steam my vegetables and put my greens in my smoothie, which is what I do, and then at nighttime, I'll have veg, so I can do fruit all day, every day.
I
Uh
get that. Yeah.
but for dinner, I want something steamed. So we did lots of steamed veggies at night and then tried to get the liver rescue salad in whenever we could. So,
Gotcha. Yes. Have you ever tried the simplified cleansing?
um, I haven't actually done that.
If you ever want to like see if your kids would do it again, that might be an easier one because there's lots of cooked options on that. It's
Okay.
basically just staying fat free and adding in a lot of apples and the juices and the normal stuff that you
Yeah.
probably eat anyway. So it's
Yeah.
not really that much different than what you would probably eat in terms of like a drastic change for kids. It's definitely more doable. My family did it last summer
Good.
together. And then my youngest daughter, who has had a lot more health issues over historically, she and I did a few more rounds together. So I did like
And
4
does she live
rounds.
with you?
She is a college student now, but
Okay.
she did I mean, during, of course, quarantine, she was home all
Right.
the time. Um, so that was actually we took advantage of that during that whole period and really kind of buckled down and got serious about clean eating and things like that. I mean, I
Yes.
had already been doing it, and actually my whole family, it's funny when I first started my medical medium journey, I insisted that they join me because I was convinced, even though I had no proof of this yet for myself, that this was the way to go. So it just made so much sense to me. It just appealed to me on my, an intellectual level, on a spiritual level, on a sort of instinctive level. I just was like, this is it. So I've been feeding them celery juice and smoothies and all that stuff from 2.5 years ago, whenever
Good
they're
for you.
here. So,
Yeah.
and my youngest, I have to say, even to being, she was a college freshman this year, and I got her a juicer and a blender to take with her, and she had
Nice.
an apartment, not the dorm, because I knew she had all sorts of food intolerances and stomach dysfunction. So, like the dorm food, I just didn't think was going to work for her, even so I just thought, let's do an apartment from the get go and, do your routine every day. And she did it. I was actually so proud of
That's
her because
awesome.
she's pretty hardcore medical medium.
Is she in Florida with you or is she
Uh-huh.
somewhere else? Okay,
She
good.
is. She's home now for the summer.
Oh, okay.
So that's cool. And she goes to Florida State. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay.
about 4 hours from Orlando.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and even my older daughter, she she was pretty hardcore for maybe the first year and a half or so, and then she sort of started letting some gluten and things creep back into her schedule. But honestly, I'm going to do an interview with her too because she had this terrible acne, and it's all gone. And she's had some major anxiety issues as well that have really calmed down for her. So it's like really, really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear because my 15-year-old, during, especially during this whole COVID stuff, her anxiety kind of had gotten the best of her for a while, and she was getting some breaking out, which I'm sure had something to do with her mental state also. But the celery has helped so much. I mean, she is
Yes.
happy and giggling, and her brother fight so much less now. They hardly ever fight. They become like best buddies, and
Isn't that
um,
amazing
yeah,
how it's interesting when you start clearing the toxins out of your body, you have like a personality and a
freedom.
spiritual, like, yes, it's like you're not like being annoyed by the whatever's impeding you. So you can
Yeah, these
be,
little mind chatters constantly.
yeah. So
In
it's
fact, last night she was like being so goofy with her brother. She was just saying like just I can't even remember what she was doing, but something so weird and goofy. And I just put my stuff down. I stopped and I just like, you got to give me a hug. Because it was just so great to see her kind of just be herself and not
amazing.
thinking about herself and how that looks and,
Being a
all that
teenager.
stuff.
She was not
Exactly.
being a teenager for a minute.
Right.
That's so cool. Well, I hope that she's willing to, give it some more time and keep doing the protocols, especially when she's home with you.
Yeah.
You have a chance to kind of make the road a little easier by buying the celery and making it for her, or at least setting up the stage so she could do it
Yeah.
easily. So
Exactly.
once they go on their own, then I mean, I recognize it's not convenient. You have to go out of your way to do this lifestyle. It's not
Yeah.
something that comes easily. You have to plan it out because if you don't plan it and you just think, I'll just wing it, you will be left high and dry because
Yeah.
chances are you won't be able to have the tools that you need.
It's true. I have a 22-year-old son who's kind of off on his own now, and I'm constantly sending him links on Amazon of the blue wild blueberries to get, and because I got him finally making smoothies after many, many years of him being
Awesome.
just addicted to pizza and Coke and stuff I had no control over.
Yep.
But he's doing it. I'm like, you cannot run out. You don't let yourself run out. I said, you're going to put another order in. I said, do you need blueberries? Nope. I got a bag. And I'm like, still order yourself another bag of blueberries. Don't run out of them.
Yeah, 100%. That's great advice. Hopefully he's following it.
And that's for everybody. I mean, I tell everybody, you every time you go shopping, even though you have 20 bananas at home, buy 20 more bananas because you can just put them in the freezer. You cannot run out, you know? If you do,
I
they're gonna
totally
make
agree.
you're
And
gonna
getting
make
the right
stack.
ripeness. It's like, you
Yeah,
have to think ahead because like papaya, bananas, mangoes, all of those types of things, you have to catch them at the right ripeness. And so in order to do that,
true.
you have to definitely like be sort of thinking about it ahead of time and thinking,
Yeah,
it's funny every time my husband goes out and about, I'm like, green bananas. Cause like, a lot of times we'll have plenty of yellow bananas, but I know in 2 days those are going in the freezer and they're not going to
yeah.
be like the fresh ones anymore. And we're going to need a new like crop.
Yeah, I know. I get kind of obsessive with keeping a certain amount of bananas in the freezer, you know?
Yeah. Well,
I don't like it when
sometimes,
my stash goes too low, you know?
right. I totally get that because it's like you feel like it's going to have to happen at an inconvenient time. Like you're going to have to run out to the store in the middle of a day when you don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
And so I can totally relate to that. I'm glad I'm not the only one because
And that's what I love about medical medium is there's no deprivation. I mean, he's like, eat. He doesn't say don't eat too much of anything. He's like, just eat, eat, but
exactly.
eat these foods that humans are meant to be eating.
Right. And it's not
Mhm.
about calories. It's not about any of the things that we are conditioned to think are the factors we need to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
It's about I think fat is the biggest factor that I've noticed in my journey, like, it impedes weight loss if I'm eating too much fat, even if I'm sticking to all the good foods and not eating any of the crap, this just the amount of fat really dictates how that whole weight fluctuation happens. So, that's been the biggest factor I've noticed. What about you?
Yeah. I think with fat is huge, and that's the hardest thing to talk to people about, because I get a lot of people who come onto this journey and they add all this fruit and they start gaining weight. In fact, I just had talked to somebody about that today, this morning. And if you don't lower your fats, it's almost like for me, I feel like if I have a lot of fat in my diet from even from 2 days ago or a meal I had yesterday, and then I'm doing all my normal stuff the following day or today, all the juices and the smoothies, I'm fuller. It just sits in me longer. It takes longer for it to go through, and then then it can kind of putrefy and stuff like that inside of you,
Yep.
and it takes longer to digest because it's being blocked. So
Exactly. That's
lower
another
the
thing about
fats, get rid
yeah.
of the fats in the morning or during the day completely, and then just have them at night. But even at night, try not to have it every night. Give yourself
Yep.
a couple fat-free days during the week. Maybe give yourself just a juice day once a month or 2 juice days in a row once a month. Anything to give yourself a little kind of cleanse, giving your liver a little rejuvenation.
Yep. That's great advice. Looking back in your journey, so you started your celery juice in your smoothie. Then, how long would you say before you started noticing changes in how you're
Um,
feeling?
well, people ask me that all the time, and I always consider myself pretty healthy. So I guess the first thing I noticed was after I would have my morning smoothie, even before I changed it to the blueberry smoothie, I was still doing my cacao and then carob, but I was slowly lowering my almond butter, and I was slowly taking out some of the hemp seeds because I did those in there, lowering the fat on that. But still, I did lower the fats on it, but also I think the celery just helped my digestion. It helped keep that in me rather than just exit me immediately, and how that would feel in just that depletion, you know? Uh, so that was immediate. I don't know. As far as timeline, I don't know. I would say I'm still healing 4 years later. It's constant. We're bombarded with so much crap. Every time I step out in my back deck, I smell the fumes of the pesticides that they're spraying, or you know, the car that's driving by and
You're so
all
right.
that stuff. It's just everywhere, and it kind of pisses me off.
Yeah,
We
rightly
can't get
so.
anywhere clean, or clear
Yeah.
of that.
I know I was outside with my dogs earlier this morning and I looked up in the sky and sure enough, there's like a chemtrail above me. I'm like, oh, that's lovely. I
My partner wanted to go walking the other night, and it was just starting to sprinkle, and he's like, "It's just sprinkling. We can go." I'm like, "You know what? I won't walk in the rain anymore." And
because of all the toxins it collects
yeah,
on the
it's
way
not
down.
clean.
Yep. I know. It's well, we just do what we can do. All we can do is try and clean it out as quickly as we accumulate it.
That's exactly right. That's why it can never stop. The lifestyle is it's a lifelong journey. I tell people, this is not a diet, not something you're going to come onto for a couple months and expect to go off and be fine. You will probably be fine for a while, but why stop?
Right. So when you're talking to someone new, what would you say to them if they're embarking on this journey? What would your advice be?
I think the first thing would be just have patience with yourself. It took your body so many years. It took your body a lifetime to get to the load it's carrying right now to create these symptoms and conditions, and to be patient, and also that the body can only release toxins and poisons at a certain level, or you would be sicker than you've ever been, probably.
Yep.
So having patience with your body and trusting the process. It works. It's a process that's proven to be working for thousands and hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
Right.
So
Yep. That's true. That's another reason I wanted to do these interviews because I think sometimes people just need confirmation that it is the way to go. They're like, that seems like a lot of work. And how do I know it's going to work?
right,
So,
I'd rather just take a pill that
well,
is going to suppress this symptom or that symptom, or another pill to suppress a couple symptoms,
yep. I
versus
know.
just changing your life a little bit more and getting rid of the cause.
I know. I guess it's the lack of I just have to peel it away though. I'm like, at the bottom line, do they not want to feel well? And that can't be true because everyone wants to feel well. So they have a deep-seated belief somewhere in there that this may not work,
Yeah,
I think.
here's a good example of that. So my partner was born with like he needs an aortic valve replacement or something on his heart, and he'll have that by the end of summer. Probably in August, he'll have this surgery on his heart. And he said, we're preparing for this and kind of knowing what's going to happen. And he said, and then I have to eat this high protein diet. They want you to eat this high protein diet when you're coming off of that. And I'm like, when you're coming off of heart surgery, I'm like, high protein diet, you're going to get all this fat. And he's like, no, it doesn't have to be fat. And I'm like, well, you can't separate the two. You're going to have high protein, you're going to have high fat. High fat thickens the blood, thickens your blood. Your blood isn't going to function as optimally as it could and should. So, and you can't.
Wow.
He's like, this is what the doctors say. This is what
Right.
all the literature says. I'm like, okay, you're
That's
going to do what
it's
you have to do.
yeah, God bless you for being able to just let go. That's the hardest thing for me, like around the people that are close to me, not wanting to like control them
Yes.
and say, this is the right way. So it,
Even when such a transformation that you have had. I mean, for me, someone looking at me might not see my transformation. It's hard for me even to talk about it, really, because I don't have such an amazing story like you do. Uh,
well,
so
luckily you
I'm
didn't start
surprised.
out sick. That's a gift in itself. You didn't ever go down
Right,
fall off the cliff.
right.
So yeah, uh, it's it's a blessing and a curse, but mostly a blessing for me, because I was so far down that I can say, look at me. But
I know, and people should take a look at that and see.
yeah,
Wow.
I know I've been reaching out to some folks in some groups that are specifically for vocal issues, spasmodic dysphonia and
Mm.
such, and just to let them know that this is a path possibility for them. So it's just interesting because not everybody's ready to hear it.
No, They'll hear it when they're ready,
Yep.
and it'll be there for them when they're ready for it.
Yep.
That's what I
Exactly.
tell my yoga students, that, they fall out of the yoga practice, and I'm like, "It's okay. It's gonna be there when you're ready for it."
Right. Well, that's true of everything, I guess. It's our own personal journey and everybody has to choose for themselves. That's the great thing. We have free will.
Yes.
So where can everybody find you? Um,
So I'm really on just Instagram as far as social media. My daughter got me on that, and in fact, thank you, Lily, for getting me on that because that's how I found the celery juice. So it's Radiant Life with Michelle, and I do post a lot about only about my journey with and experiences with medical medium and his recipes and his amazing insight into everything.
awesome.
So
What about your yoga teaching? I know you teach
yeah,
classes.
so I do teach yoga. I'm only teaching on Zoom right now. I have 3 classes a week. If anyone's interested in checking out a class, just go to my Radiant Life with Michelle on Instagram and DM me. And if they DM me, they can send me their email address and I'll send them a Zoom link. And it's just a
Perfect.
few times a week.
Awesome.
So,
Perfect. Well, I am so
and you're
glad.
welcome to join whenever you want to.
I know I love yoga and I need to kind of get back into an official routine with that. So I haven't quite figured out. My mornings are so consumed with my juices and my
I
smoothies. I
know.
got to figure out how to shift it around to make the yoga happen in the morning.
But mine is get up, my lemon water, and then I usually have a little bit of time on emailing and stuff like that. But then I get down and I prep my celery and get the huge because now I'm making celery for everybody. So it's like five big bunches of celery. Get it all prepped, get the juicer set up, and then I go either practice my yoga or teach yoga, whatever. Then come back and juice, give everybody celery juice, and then on to the smoothies.
Okay.
I usually
Well,
make an extra juice for me because I do another 32 ounces of a sweet fruit after my celery,
uh-huh.
and then on to smoothies.
Awesome. Well, good. I'll have to maybe give that a whirl so I can make your class one of these mornings because
Love it.
I would love it as well. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And,
Welcome.
it's beautiful to hear your journey. And,
Thank you.
and you look perfectly healthy and like a picture of vibrant health to me.
Oh,
So,
thank you. So do you, and I'm so excited for you and all your healing you've done, even in this short time I've known you.
oh, thank you so much.